How are you?
I am doing very well from Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Ooh,
And
wow.
I am so happy to have you with us today. If you're just joining us, we have with us Dr. Jeje Noval. And Jeje is coming to us from sunny Loma Linda, California. And happy Easter, everyone. I know that most of us are supposed to be inside today. And I was able to one of the pluses of the corona COVID-19 is that people are at home. So Dr. Jeje was available. We're so glad to have her here to talk to you today about gut health 101. Gut health and your immunity, as well as reasons you may not be feeling well that may be related to the gut. And over the last few weeks, we have been continuing with our theme of Health is Wealth 2020. And Jeje is our fourth speaker in this series as we consider the importance of health in just everyday life. Health is wealth is really the explanation that if you don't have health, what do you have? With your health, you can live a good life, you can enjoy family, you can enjoy activities, you can enjoy things with other people, but if you don't have your health, it's pretty pitiful. And thank you so much, Jeje, for being here.
Thank you for having me. What an honor and a privilege.
You're welcome. To tell you a little bit about Dr. Noval, I'd like to share with you some of the things that she shared with me. And what I can tell you is that Jeje is a registered dietitian nutritionist serving as an assistant professor in the Department of Nutrition and Dietetics with the School of Allied Health Professions. Jeje received her undergraduate degree in nutrition and dietetics from the Loma Linda University, a graduate degree in clinical nutrition from Rosalind Franklin University, and a PhD in education, specializing in online learning and teaching from North Central University. Jeje, while she was a student at Loma Linda University and during the first several years of her career as a faculty member, the chairman of the Nutrition and Dietetics Department was Bert Connell, PhD. Dr. Connell's leadership influenced Jeje to embrace the philosophy of servant leadership. Because of Dr. Connell's involvement in working with universities and health centers abroad, Jeje had the opportunity to partake in providing nutrition educations to students in a newly established dietetics profession program in Romania. So Jeje's been around the world and back. Jeje has an ongoing desire to train dietetic students for camera readiness. Jeje, you're certainly camera ready today. Her
Thank
training
you.
prepares the students for future opportunities to speak well and professionally through various media platforms while delivering evidence-based nutrition information. Because of her partnership with the Loma Linda Broadcasting Networking, working as a volunteer musician, Jeje and her students have been able to provide Loma Linda Broadcasting Network sister channel, Smart Lifestyle TV Broadcasting Network, with nutrition content for their viewers through the program entitled Chat and Chew and Nutrition Bits. Jeje, just reading your bio was phenomenal. It lets me know that you're exactly who we want to be talking to.
Praise the
And
Lord.
good, absolutely, absolutely. And I want to ask you, when you're not teaching or singing or being a servant leader, what are you doing?
Oh, good question. I like to play. And up until, okay, I have to say this because Dr. Ernie is online too. But before my shoulder got messed up, I was loving playing pickleball. And now my shoulder is so much better. So hopefully when we are able to go out and play, I'll be back out there in the courts. But my first love sport-wise is cycling. And so I love to go both mountain biking and road biking.
Oh, that's awesome. It seems like there's a theme, a pickleball theme. I've had 4 different speakers and all of them love pickleball.
Yes, we do.
That is so that is so interesting.
Because
Anyhow,
once you start, you can't stop. It's
it's so funny, and you know,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what the age is, really. It seems like um, Dr. Ernie plays pickleball. I don't know how old Ernie is, but his mom is going to be 82 and she plays pickleball.
That's
And
right.
it seems like it's just growing and growing and growing.
And
Um,
you know, it's thanks to Auntie Loida, Ernie's mom, who taught Ernie how to play. And then Ernie came back to Loma Linda and spread the good news to us. Now we
wow.
have this bug because his mom said, you got to learn this.
Wow.
So we're
Wow.
grateful.
That is so awesome. The next question I have for you, or I heard a rumor, and
Oh, okay.
the rumor is that you are also an accomplished chef. I won't say who said that.
No, no, no. Shut up. No, 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 no. That is definitely a rumor. I wish that were true. I wish I had that skill, but Dr. Ernie was making fun with that. I wish I had those skills, but you might want my colleague, Chef Corey, on board. He teaches with us at Loma Linda. He's the one that's a chef. So.
Okay, well, you know what? I am always looking for referrals for our program, so I look forward to that.
We'll hook you
As
up.
yes, please do, please do. So we have some people online here. I want to share a little bit about how we're going to run our program this evening. So before we get into Dr. Noval's presentation, what we're going to do is we're going to start with a 45-minute presentation by Dr. Jeje, and she will be talking again about Gut Health 101. She will also be discussing gut health and immunity, and then in addition, she will be talking about reasons you may not be feeling well related to gut health. I think we could have 3 meetings very easily on that topic, but she's going to focus on a few things today. If you have questions, I am going to ask you to share them in the chat box if you are on Zoom. If you are on Facebook Live, you can simply type in your questions and I will let her know that you have a question for her. I will also later on in the program invite you to unmute yourself, or I will unmute you and you can ask her a question live. Thank you for joining us, and I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Jeje as she talks about gut health. Dr. Jeje, thank you so very much for making the time to be here with us today.
You are so welcome. Okay, let's see here. Let me share this with all of you. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So as Natalie mentioned, I get to talk to you today about Gut Health 101. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. But I first want to start off with this verse in Psalms 139:14, and it says that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And I like starting off with that because it's so incredible how God has designed us, how God made us. And when you take those science classes like anatomy and physiology, microbiology, what have you, you can't help but think, wow, there was a creator for sure. Okay, so this is how I will be doing this. I just like to always go over a little overview so you know which direction I will be taking things at. So I'll start off with a very basic overview, or sorry, background on the gut. And this will be a lot of, well, this will be review for many of you. And then after I go through that, I will talk about the problem when we do not take care of our gut. It's a major problem that many of us have, and we don't realize that we run into this problem. And then I would like to end with the actions that we can all take to have good gut health. Okay, so I believe a few weeks ago, Dr. Ernie went over the immune system. So this is just a very basic picture about that. I won't go over it. As many of you know, God designed us with so many layers of systems, and this is one of them. And let me see, I'm not sure if my pointer will actually show here, but well, okay. At least have my cursor there, but let's go back to this picture. So we have all these different parts of the immune system, the tonsils. Maybe some of you, like me, don't have your tonsils anymore. We have the bone marrow, the spleen, and all that is mentioned there. But today, we are going to focus right here where it says Peyer's patch. Natalie, can you see my cursor when I point at it? Or you don't? Maybe not.
Yeah, hi, I can't see your cursor. I had myself muted.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. I'll just try to point things out as best as I can.
You know what? Your cursor does show. It shows.
Oh, it does?
Clear. Yeah, it does.
Oh,
it does.
Excellent. Okay. Yay. Okay. Now I'm going to go into the digestive system only by showing this picture to you. We won't go over the whole digestive system. But see, earlier we saw these Peyer's patch, and they are in the gut. And I'll refer to them in a little bit. So because the immune system has different elements, we are going to just focus right here, the gut. So the digestive system is another system that God designed us with, so that when we eat, it goes into through our mouths, down the esophagus, and through our stomach, and into the small intestines and the large intestines. So we will focus right here. And before we go into that, there is this big word called gut microbiota. Ooh, okay. So what is it? Well, let me tell you this. See here to the right? Yes, the gut microbiota. That's our microbiota. If there have been a time in which you felt like, oh, I am the only person here in this room today, never feel like you are ever alone. Of course, we have our angels, we have God with us, but imagine this. He created us with communities in our gut, not only our guts, but our eyes and other places in the body, mouths. Okay, so the definition is, it is a community of microorganisms. And we have 100 trillion microbial cells. Now, these microbial cells are commensal. So meaning, you know what, they're all in there. There are all these bacteria in our gut, and they're good. So we shouldn't be afraid of them. We shouldn't panic that we have this community of us and we have bacteria. Ooh, no, it's good. This bacteria is good. So they're commensal, and they're like, okay, I have different friends in here. I don't really need you, but they're all there. And then there are also symbiotic microbes or microorganisms, and they actually need each other in order to live well. So these microorganisms can't live without the other. So we have commensal, we have symbiotic, but there's always a but. We also have pathogenic microorganisms as well. It's just the way things are, but we have a combination. But again, this is called microbiota. When I went to school, by the time I graduated, we were always calling it gut microflora. And so today, for the past several years now, they've actually said, we're not calling it gut flora anymore. We are calling it gut microbiota. But, okay, there's always a but. When you read articles, you might see another word. Not only will you see gut microbiota, but you will see people also use the term gut microbiome. And these two terms happen to be interchanged, and some people use them as basically the same thing. However, if you want to really know what gut microbiome is, I'm going to tell you. So gut microbiome actually has to do with the genes. It's the gene collection that is in these microorganisms. So it's the genes that are encoded in the gut, in the microorganisms collectively. So it's referring to genes. Microbiota is talking about the community of microorganisms, good and bad. Okay, so just remember that if you see gut microbiome, you know it's talking about the gene collection, and if it's microbiota, it is actually talking about the microorganisms in our gut. Okay, so once again, this is what we are going to focus on. Okay, so here is a picture of inside the gut. Okay, so the small intestines and the large intestines. Right here, these are the small intestines, and these are the large intestines. So from the stomach, it goes into the small intestines. There's like the duodenum, the small intestines, and then basically the large intestines, and it goes out into the cecum. But see how these intestines are like cylinder shape, okay? They're a cylinder shape. And if we pretend that we are doing a cross-section of this cylinder, of this intestine, let's look at this right here. So this part where, that's the hollow part, but in that hollow part is where all the bacteria is floating through, and food that has been digested, broken down. So just imagine all that coming through this small intestine. Okay, they're coming through here. So let's just picture that. But this is so crucial to keep in mind. See where my arrow is? And I'm pointing to this lining. This is the lining of the gut. I'm a visual person, so I need to know I need to picture what I'm talking about in my mind. And so I like thinking about that lining in the gut, and it's right here. And this is so crucial to remember as we continue to talk about the gut. So this is a cross section, but let's take it even closer and go up to this part. See these finger-like projections? This is like the microvilli. This part here is the same thing as over here, but you can't really see it in that part. Over here, these finger-like projections, that's called microvilli, and that's where we absorb food. However, I'm really going to talk about this lining that we will look at even more closely right here. The lining of the gut is quite delicate if we don't take care of ourselves. Okay, now think about this picture, okay, this one. So this next picture here, this enterocyte is actually lining the gut lining. So the enterocyte, we have many of these enterocytes, and they are lined up side by side each other. So another name for enterocyte is endothelial cell. So this is a cell right here. And it basically has the same parts of the basic parts of a regular cell, as we know. There's the nucleus, and there's a nucleus right there, mitochondrions, or mitochondria, and all the other elements. Okay, so we've gotten from here, I'm gonna go back to this picture over here. And so picture those enterocytes lined up one after another in these little microvilli, or after that microvilli, it's all lined up right here. So here's this enterocyte or endothelial cell. So this next picture will show you a few more enterocytes. So it's the same thing, but it looks just a little bit different. It's still like a rectangle. This isn't quite a rectangle, but it kind of looks like a rectangle. So now we have this here. So our gut is lined with all of these enterocytes. And when things are going well, when our gut is healthy, this is key right here. We have normal, tight junctions. That is such a good thing because usually food is passing over here, toxins, and these tight junctions right here is sealed so that it won't go into the bloodstream, and the bloodstream is usually down over here. So we want tight junctions. But here's a word for you today. I have been searching for this word for a few years now, and I found it. It is called eubiosis. Yes, just like the slide says, eubiosis. It means that we have a good balance of non-pathogenic bacteria, or the good bacteria, as well as the pathogenic bacteria. So we don't have a lot of pathogenic, because we all have that pathogenic. We have pathogenic bacteria, we have fungi, we also have viruses down there, small amounts, you know, when we're healthy. So we have less of that and more good bacteria. So that word is eubiosis. You want to be in eubiosis, good balance of the microbiota, good balance of the microorganisms. Okay, so this picture right here, the blue bacteria is actually the good bacteria, or the non-pathogenic bacteria. And then the purple bacteria is my favorite color, but it actually is representing the bad bacteria, or the non-pathogenic. So when we're in good health, when we are eating well, we're not stressed, then these junctions remain tight and we are in balance, good balance of the bacteria. So eubiosis. So this is just another picture because, again, I'm a visual person, so I need as many pictures as possible. So here we have the epithelial cells, okay? And it has tight junctions. There are no spaces in between. So it's keeping toxins, undigested food, things that we don't want. It keeps it at bay. It keeps it over here. It's like shoving it down, 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 down into the large intestine and out to the cecum area and out. Okay, and see, it is, yeah, trying as much as possible to keep it, all the toxins and the undigested food, it's keeping it from going into the bloodstream. This is what we want. This is what we aim for. Okay, so when we live life, from the time we are born up until our current standing in life, the composition of our gut changes, the composition of the bacteria. So when we are born, the mode of delivery, like if our mothers birthed us, vaginally versus C-section, when a mother births their child vaginally, then the baby is just bathed with all of this good bacteria. And then C-section, well, not as much, but it's not like all is not good for the child as they grow up, because good healthy habits can still help someone live a healthy life. But just know that mode of delivery does make a difference. And then the food that the mother feeds the child can impact the gut microbiota. And then what we feed ourselves, of course. aging, it can also play a part. And then if we take excessive amounts of antibiotics, that can also affect the gut microbiota. It can also affect the composition. And then a big one right here is environmental factors. And I'll talk more about those environmental factors later on. Okay, I'm only going to look at this for the slide for a little bit, but there are different names of the microorganisms, so many names. I only have a few of them right here. But you're going to hear, and if you read in a lot of articles, you're going to hear about the firmicutes and bacteroidetes. That's a whole nother lecture, but let's move on. So Hippocrates was very wise, as we all know, and he was the one that truly said all disease begins in the gut. Of course, there are genetic factors too, but he was very spot on, I believe, when he made this statement. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but within the gut lies 70% of our immune system. So we got to do our best to take care of it. So remember that word that we said earlier, normal balance of the bacteria. That was eubiosis. Well, here's the opposite of eubiosis. See, I've always heard of dysbiosis now for a while. So it's like, well, what's the opposite of dysbiosis? And finally, I found that word eubiosis. But what is dysbiosis? We don't want this. So basically, there are three kinds. If you look at this picture right here, dysbiosis is when there is an imbalance of the bacteria, the microorganisms in our gut. So this one here to the left says pathobiont expansion. It means that now we have more pathogenic bacteria in our gut. No, that's not good. Another version is, well, somehow we have less or reduced diversity of the bacteria, of the good bacteria in the gut. Or we have lost beneficial microbes. We have less good bacteria. So it could be less diversity right here, or we have more of the bad type of bacteria. Dysbiosis, imbalance of the gut. So that's completely the opposite of eubiosis, what we like to achieve and have. Okay, well, here we go. So what's happening in dysbiosis? Well, definitely we have more of the pathogenic bacteria. And so again, the purple represents the bad bacteria. We have more of them, and we have less of the good bacteria. And that is the blue bacteria that is right here. Oh, so what happens? What happens when they're around? This is not good. Remember those tight junctions that I told you about earlier? Ah, well, look at this. Those tight junctions actually get loosened up. Uh-oh. Not good. Not good at all. Because that means that toxins that we might have swallowed or drunk or eaten or somehow gotten to our body, that's going to seep through these junctions, and it will go through there and into the blood area over here. And when all of these pathogenic bacteria come through and toxic things come through, then what's happening is that it releases inflammatory mediators. Oh man, when it releases those inflammatory mediators, we actually start not feeling well. We don't feel good. And these inflammatory mediators can then really cause, I was going to say systemic inflammation, or I will just say inflammation throughout the body. And then that can lead to chronic diseases. So again, the visual person in me has to show you another picture. So over here, we have stress, toxins, food allergens, but food sensitivities should also go in there too. Intake of excessive amounts of antibiotics, pathogens. Now they have a place to go through. They're like, wide open spaces, let's go there. And then they're gonna go through this part, and oh my, that's not a good thing, because if they get through the junctions, then they start going into the bloodstream, and then they float through our whole body, and then they can cause inflammation in different parts of the body, different organs in the body. Okay. Again, the visual person in me has to show you one more picture of the same thing. So here we go. We have these enterocytes, or these endothelial cells, and we don't like this, because this lining in which now there's more space in those junctions, that is what we call intestinal permeability, or you've heard of leaky gut. That's what that is. Not good at all. So again, these green things here represent undigested food particles, microorganisms, toxins, and then it goes to the bloodstream and bam, causing sickness. So what are the factors that cause dysbiosis? Well, okay, there's always a genetic factor. Diet, the food that we eat, of course. Excessive amounts of antibiotics. And when we talk about antibiotics, there are times when you really need it. So when I bring this up here, when we bring this up here, we're not saying it's a no-no, because there are some medical conditions where you truly need it, but it's excessive. Here's a big one, stress. Oh, guy. And then the environment and its factors, and then sleep. Okay, so those are the factors. We'll go back to those later on. But I'm gonna zero in on the diet affecting the gut microbiota. Okay, so this part right here, added sugar, I will add excessive added sugar. Okay, too much of that wreaks havoc. And then excessive amounts of saturated fat, which can also, for many people, elevate the bad cholesterol. Excessive amounts can affect the gut. If we consume a lot of refined carbohydrates, a lot excessive, that plays a factor. Food additives and pesticides, I know, that is not good news. And in my screen, it looks so light here. I didn't realize it'd be so light, but gluten, it is pro-inflammatory, so excessive amounts can possibly, for a lot of people, cause that. And then there are personal triggers, and that one can represent, when I put that there, food sensitivities, not just food allergies or food intolerances, but food sensitivities. Okay, but we can't talk about gut health unless we talk about probiotics. So let me just jump over there really quickly. So probiotics are our friends. Yes, they are. They are live microorganisms. And what they do is that they impart health benefits to the host. And the host is you, me, your brother, your sister, your parents, significant others, children. When we take those in, it imparts good things. And it does allow for our healthy bacteria that we currently have in our GI tract to thrive. So it inhibits the toxins that are currently there. It inhibits the bad bacteria that's currently there. And when we look at probiotics, when we think about it, what are the criteria? Well, they must be live, resistant to acid and bile, and they must be able to survive the upper intestinal tract and go all the way down to the lower tract. And they must be able to reach the distal gut, able to attach to the intestinal epithelium. That's the lining of the gut, all these big words. And they must confer health to the host. And of course, they must have scientifically proven health benefits. Now, a lot of people get very disappointed because they think, oh, I will eat probiotics or take probiotic supplements and I can have good bacteria in me. That's all I have to do. And actually, no, they're actually transient. They come when you take probiotic supplements. They come, they stay for about 2 weeks or so, and then they're pretty much transient, but they do not colonize. So I know a lot of people can get very disappointed and say, oh, they don't colonize. Excuse me 1 second. I just have to take a little sip of water. They don't colonize? No, but that's okay, because why we take probiotics, why we should eat foods, whole foods that do contain probiotics. Oh, I forgot I was supposed to do that. It's supposed to go away. Is that probiotics, its main job is that it is an antibacterial agent. If there's anything that it does, it can kill the bad bacteria that's in our gut, the pathogenic. All right, this is good. Yes, it is. I know this picture is so busy, but you know, as I keep digging in for different reasons, like how does the probiotic does this? Well, when I kept searching into several different papers, it said that this right here, these beta defensins, these are antimicrobial peptides. They're like a protein, antimicrobial, so they help kill bacteria. So when we consume probiotics, it increases the production of the beta defensins. And it also helps produce good immunoglobulins like the IgA that's involved in our immune system. So we want that because it protects us. So that's what probiotics do. It produces more of these elements, and I'm sure along with others, but these are at least some of the things that it's like, oh, at a cellular level, that's what it does. More beta defensins, more IgA, fantastic. But you don't ever have to remember that if you don't want to. Just know that it's an antibacterial agent. So what do probiotics do? It clears the infections from the gut. That's what it's good at. It does resolve imbalances. It stimulates the immune system, and it enhances the gut's protective mucous membrane. The mucous membrane, that protects us too, so it enhances what that's supposed to do for you and me. It comes in a couple forms, food products, and it also comes in supplement form, capsules and powders. So these are the food items that contain probiotics. There are people who do eat yogurt and kefir. For me personally, I really try to keep dairy to a bare minimum because I am lactose intolerant. But you know, yogurt, they have like cashew-based yogurt, and Vega is my favorite product, and it does have a few of the different strains in there, and so that's one of the food choices that I like to consume. But there's yogurt and kefir and cottage cheese and buttermilk. Kimchi. I have never gotten into kimchi until this year. One of my research groups wanted to do a study on kimchi, but because it's a human interaction type of study, all of our studies from here on out, we have canceled those because of COVID-19. But because we've been talking about it, I'm like, I have missed out on kimchi. But yes, it's fermented, and so it does have probiotics. Fermented tofu, soy sauce, miso, tempeh, and fresh sauerkraut. I'm going to try to wrap it up here because I know Miss Natalie said that we'll end this part in by quarter till. These are the.
You know what? You keep going. We have people on there. Go ahead. If we have to run over by a few minutes, the people are listening.
Okay, thank you. So these are the different food items. Now, do we get the full benefits that we would compared to a capsule? Not necessarily. Like, you would have to eat a good amount of kimchi, at least a cup or so. I can't eat a lot of kimchi, but I love it. But for some people, they can't do so much. But that's the thing. If you have a medical condition and you want to get to therapeutic levels, then actually supplements would be the way to go. However, I really believe that if you are allowing yourself to have these different foods throughout the day, then you are getting really good benefits from these foods that do contain probiotics. Just do the best that you can with these. Okay, so I know here's another slide with a lot of funny looking words, but I just wanted to put a few of the names of the different strains that particularly help with the immune system and the gut barrier. So many of them begin with Lactobacillus casei, Lactobacillus plantarum. One that's familiar to many of us is Lactobacillus acidophilus. Then we have the Bifidobacterium family and Streptococcus family. Just a few of the names. So when you're buying like that yogurt, like the Vega one that I buy, I always like to look at the cart that it's in, and I like to see, ooh, how many strains does it have? It's disappointing that some of them only have one, and they make this great claim that it has probiotics. And then it's like, it's just one strain. It's really nice to see something that has as many strains as possible. Okay. So the dosages for children, and this is especially if you will take a supplement, is 5 to 10 billion CFUs, colony forming units. For adults, 10 to 20 billion. But then if you have a medical condition, higher amounts would be much, much better. However, instead of focusing on the CFUs, colony forming units, what's really important is to look, if you're going for a supplement, is to see that it has many different strains. The more strains it has, the better. When I see 6 strains and they're like, oh, this is great, it has 6, I'm like, not worth my money. No, the higher 10 to 12 is much better. It is best to take them with or right after eating a meal. Okay. And especially if you buy the supplement, there are 2 methods in which it does have to be stored: refrigerated, and then some that are freeze-dried do not have to be refrigerated, but they certainly have to be kept out of the heat. Okay, but we cannot talk about probiotics until we talk about the prebiotics. Yes. So they are actually non-digestible, don't let this word scare you, oligosaccharides, substances that feed probiotics. So these are just basically, different fibers in the food that we eat. And the criteria, it has to be resistant to acid, susceptible to fermentation, and it enhances the viability of and or activity of microorganisms. So in other words, it helps the probiotics, or it helps the bacteria in the good bacteria to thrive. It is the food. If you don't eat enough of the prebiotics, then how can the probiotics do its job? Okay, so not all probiotics will survive unless it's present. So the most common ones, you don't really have to remember these names, but fructooligosaccharides, galacto-oligosaccharides, and inulin. So there are these food products that you can buy at the store. Again, I'm going to go back to Vega. I don't work for them at all, but I love their product. But I like their particular yogurt because it's cashew-based, it's dairy-free. And Not only do they have probiotics, and a good amount, a few different strains, but they do also have inulin in there as well. So it's like, oh, very cool, very nice. So what are these? They're basically short chain fatty acids that result from being fermented from fiber, the fibrous foods that we eat. It does decrease the pH of the colon so that it helps with the absorption of calcium, iron, and magnesium. And, well, it decreases the survival of some of the pathogenic bacteria. So here are a few food items that do contain prebiotics. Now, I put a picture here of chicory root because I had never seen one myself, and Jerusalem artichoke. It's like every time you type, list for me the 10 top prebiotic foods, these foods come up. And I personally haven't seen these around. And I went to the grocer one time and I asked her, do you have any Jerusalem artichokes? And all she can show me were just regular artichokes. So, but it's not only those. We don't only have to eat those. Wheat, barley, rye, flax, oatmeal, onions, garlic, leeks, legumes, asparagus, leafy greens. Yes, leafy greens, berries, bananas, and honey. Now, don't you get surprised when you go to the supermarket, like everything else is gone, all the frozen this and that are gone, but then the produce section is still intact. And it's like, ooh, lots of asparagus that are being sold in the stores, or the leafy greens. Take advantage of those. Those have your prebiotics there. And I just wanted to quickly tell you about symbiotics. If you do get a supplement, there are some that do have both, symbiotic. So probiotic microorganisms, they have the probiotic component, and then they have the prebiotic fiber source as well. Okay, so then what else do we do for good health? Let's minimize our intake of added sugar as best as possible. I know, hard to do because we love sweets, many of us do, but it's the excessive amounts that can kill us, really. But a little treat now and then, it's not going to hurt you. Okay, refined carbohydrates, well, yeah, especially, you know, white breads, white rice, regular pasta, they're refined. So I wouldn't eat those on a regular basis. I really eat those. Yeah, so food additives, let's minimize this as much as possible. Additives and pesticides. So I really, as much as possible, would like to encourage you, if you can, if it's possible, during the times that you can find something reasonably priced that's organic, then try to get that. Let's try to minimize those pesticides, because that can also, excessive intake of that can affect the lining of the gut. Excessive amounts of gluten, it's pro-inflammatory. That can also help minimize that irritation. And then minimize personal triggers. The personal triggers are, if you know you're allergic or intolerant or have a food sensitivity, then minimize those. Because if you keep on feeding yourself those foods, that causes your body to be in a state of inflammation. It increases the inflammation even more. So if we're going to minimize these, let's maximize vegetables for sure. Vegetables, dark, red, orange, purple. The more colors we can get, we love to say, eat the rainbow. Yes, we do, because it's true. And then fruits, for sure. You know, some people get afraid of eating fruits because they're like, it has sugar. Well, you know what? It's not concentrated. It's not like you're drinking the juice itself. I mean, I really would encourage you to drink juice unless you have diabetes and you become hypoglycemic. Then to get those blood sugars back up, a little bit of juice would be okay at that time. But you see, fruits, when we eat it as a whole food, it has fiber. It has all the other elements in it, phenols, endols, that are just so good for us, that they work together in maximizing the health benefits versus just juice, where all that is stripped out and you just get the concentrated sugar. So don't be afraid of fruits. Beans and legumes, for sure, we need to maximize that and enjoy that, because it does also have a good amount of prebiotics. Whole grains, for sure, whole grains. And I already mentioned the fermented foods. Shame on me. I forgot. Well, legumes. I didn't really forget. Nuts and peanuts. They work as great prebiotics. They can help also with feeding the good bacteria in our gut. So I can talk about nutrition with you, and you can totally follow how to eat well, how to eat right. But if we don't do these non-negotiables, it almost, won't really matter. We really need to do these gut health non-negotiables, in which we need to manage our stress. You could totally take all the probiotics in the world, but if we don't manage our stress, that's just going to override that. I try to manage my stress as much as possible by starting off the day with prayer, meditating on God's words, talking to Him. In the middle of the day, I have this Abide app, and it only takes like 2 minutes in the afternoon, and I'll just stop what I'm doing at work and just listen to that, breathe deeply, and just think about what God can do for me and what I can do for Him. But just thinking about that can bring down our stress. Deep breathing is so important. And also sleep. Oh, yes, sleep. If we don't get enough sleep, quality sleep, enough and quality, then that affects our gut. It can affect us or cause us to have dysbiosis. And I believe Dr. Ernie Medina had already addressed all these with you prior to. And of course, nutrition is a big part in that, but it's so important to move. Movement, exercise, and you don't have to run a marathon. You can do the apps or any YouTube workout at home. You don't have to have a gym membership. That excuse, I don't have a gym membership, that's so last decade ago, because you can totally be working out at home. I've been using the Kira Stokes app at home and loving it. Okay, there are my references. Thank you so much, and ready for questions.
Okay, you want to stop sharing your screen, Jeje?
Yes, ma'am. Let me try to do that. Stop share. There we go.
Okay, thank you so very much for coming on and talking about the gut health. I see that we have not lost any participants. Everyone that started on here is still here listening.
Yay.
What I want to do now is Jeje is ready to take questions. If anyone here in our chat would like to ask questions, can you go ahead, put them in the chat, or if you raise your hand, I will be able to see that, and then I can turn on your audio so that you can ask your question if you're following on Zoom. If you're on Facebook, you can simply type your question in the comments, and I will ask that question to Jeje. Do we have any questions for Jeje? I see we have several people on tonight. Well, I'm going to start. Jeje, you were talking a lot about I have a question. I'll ask that one afterwards. How can we be sure about the amounts to eat, or I know there's the food guide, but sometimes we may be eating too much of this or not enough of that. What is your recommendation in terms of, is it that if we eat a plant-based diet, we'll get everything we need? Or is it that if we, kind of eat lots of garlic and onion, we're fine? How do we get enough probiotics? How do we get enough of the things that you're saying we need for gut health?
Okay, ooh, that's such a great question. Okay, well, you know what? I will start off with a very simple illustration of the plate. And as dietitians, usually use choose my plate. But if you take the plate and you divide it in half, and if you make half of your plate vegetables and a good amount of fruit, and then a fourth of that your protein. So the other half of the plate, a fourth of that protein. So it could be tofu, it could be beans, it could be legumes. And then the other fourth of that second half, if you have that as whole grains, then you are definitely getting a good amount of, for sure, the prebiotics. Okay, the fiber. As far as the probiotics, that's tricky. I mean, even me myself, I have to be conscientious. Did I have my kimchi? Did I have my yogurt? Or did I have the other food items? Because I don't have that always in my mind all the time, but yes, the fruits and vegetables. So I have to be conscientious about it myself to make sure that I do get it.
Okay, we have 4 questions, so you'll be here for a bit. The first
Hey.
question is, how can I tell if my gut is leaking? Can my stools tell me, or gas, or some other symptom?
Okay, that's a great question there. So yes, for some people, if they do experience either excessive gas or pain, abdominal pain, or they might have diarrhea, or they might have constipation. I mean, that can represent other medical conditions. However, that could be a symptom of leaky gut. For other people, it can be fatigue. It can be that leaky brain feeling. I mean, sorry, not leaky brain, brain fog. And, oh, Guy, what was I saying with leaky brain? No. Yeah, just fatigue, headaches too. And some people, if cholesterol levels might be too high sometimes, then sometimes it's like, what is the root cause of some of these other problems that a person has? Maybe the root cause is that leaky gut. So the gut can be healed. It doesn't mean once you have a leaky gut that you are doomed. If you start eating well, it can be repaired. It can get better. And the question was also asked, can stools tell me? Sometimes for some people it can. Everybody has a different story. Everybody has a different profile. So with the stools, yeah, it is so important to look at that. If they are too liquidy, too excessively watery, then there could be issues. So then it's imperative to work with a dietitian that will help you with that, for sure.
Okay, next question is, why is it that beans, even though they're so good for you, I get so much gas after eating them?
Many people do, and there's a component in the beans that does give us gas. And so that's why it is important to cook beans to decrease the amount of gas that we have. But sometimes, even though if you eat cooked beans, just because of that particular component, it will still cause us to have gas. But it's something that we all, I mean, most of us have.
So I heard someone say that sometimes when you eat a lot of sugary foods, it causes the amount of gas you have to increase. Is that true?
You know what? I will agree to that to a certain degree, because certain people will do have an intolerance to different types of sugars, and so it could contribute to their gassy feeling.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Next question is, does the time that we have our meals help us to take good care of the good bacteria?
Oh, I'm glad you brought up that question. Thank you, because I was going to bring up the circadian rhythm. And then I'll tie it into the good bacteria. So God designed us with a circadian rhythm, 12 hours and 12 hours. So it is a good idea to eat that last meal several hours, 3 to 4 hours before going to bed, because that does give our digestive system enough time to do its thing, so that by the time you do go to sleep, you are truly well rested. Some people eat right before they go to bed and they sleep, yeah, for 7 hours, but then they wake up still, oh, I'm still so tired. Well, part of that is because the stomach, the digestive system didn't have enough time to rest. So you still wake up very tired. So it is important to eat well. So does it affect the good bacteria? In an indirect way, yes, because if we don't eat early enough in the evening, it impacts our sleep. We do not get quality sleep. And the more we do not get quality sleep, then it causes that dysbiosis in our gut. So yes, it can affect the pathogenic, the good versus the bad.
Guys, we're going to get to all your questions. Dr. Jeje is here for us to ask her questions. So I see your questions. I'm going to ask all of them. Someone is asking, Chavanice is asking, does it matter if it takes weeks after eating something before seeing it leaving my body? Does that mean there is something wrong with my gut?
Excellent question. So you know what? That is actually a food sensitivity. So there are food allergies, which the reaction can come on within the next half hour to an hour. And then you have food intolerances, and that's when you're like missing an enzyme. And then food sensitivities, these are more IgG mediated reactions. And so if you have a food sensitivity, there are some people who do eat a food element or may not realize there might be a chemical within the food, and it might be 2 days later, 3 days later, or sometime later in which you will experience something, and it might not be a good feeling. So as far as does it leave the body? Does it take a while? Certain people's digestive systems can take a while if you're not feeding your gut enough fiber, prebiotics, then yes, it can take time. But I jumped into food sensitivities because some people will experience some negative feelings like headaches or fatigue, but that's a food sensitivity. That's a whole other topic though.
Okay.
And that can show up 2 to 3 days later.
I think we're going to have to bring you back, Dr. Jeje.
Okay, not a problem.
Okay. So question, are 4 to 5 small frequent meals better than 2 meals a day for my gut? So some people, they'll eat 7 little meals, or they'll snack in between meals, or some people right now, a big thing is fasting. So they'll eat a meal in the morning and then eat one at 6, and then that's it for the day. What do you think?
Okay, I love that one. You know what though? Okay, I would love to just sit with you first and just see what your story is, what your activities are throughout the day, what you're doing, because everybody has a different story. And I would like to know, other medical conditions that you might have. These are all these things that I would need to know to give you a good answer. So certain people do need 5 to 6 small meals, especially if, blood sugar issues might be something that they need to deal with and just improve there. However, I really think that, and I have to be careful in saying this because I don't want to say something and it will be misconstrued, but the less times we eat throughout the day, that will be better, because it does give your stomach, your digestive system enough time to just rest and stop. So is 2 better? You know what? For some people, that will work really well. For some people, it won't, depending on their genetic makeup. Sometimes blood sugars just drop down too low that you have to eat. I have a former student who is now my colleague, and I have a podcast called Nutrinarratives. And I interviewed her recently, and she works for a GI clinic. And so I was having her share some of the tidbits that she gives to her patients. And many of them are saying, I experience a lot of gas. And I said, so what do you tell them? And she said that, well, you know, I realize for them, they do eat frequently throughout the day. And when I tell them to cut back on how many times they eat throughout the day, but to make sure they get what they need, she said sometimes that little tweak makes the biggest difference in their bloating. So it really depends on the individual, but the less times we can really feed ourselves and not continuously feeding, the better. For me, I do a variation of the intermittent fasting. For me, what works is the 12 and 12. And that is following the circadian rhythm. I really like to be done with dinner by 6:30. And so, well, I actually eat breakfast by around 7:30 or 8. But now that we're at home, I think I've been eating breakfast closer to 8:30 or 9. But I just really want to give my stomach, digestive system that much time, the rest. So
so you eat every 12 hours or so? Basically.
Yes.
Okay. So a lot of people.
It's a form of intermittent fasting.
Yes, yes. Sometimes I find that, you know, we eat now that we're home and we're, you know, I'm working from home. We decided at home to only eat 2 meals a day.
Yeah.
Because we're not burning a lot of energy. I'm not running around. The kids are not running around. We realized that we would cook dinner at 5 and then they would go, we're not that hungry. And it's because they're not running. We can't go out to the playground and things like that. So we cut out one of the meals for during the day. And I find that it feels a lot better. The next question is, how does hormones affect our gut health and functionality?
Ooh, yes. Good question. Well, you know, if we don't get enough sleep also, it causes us to produce more ghrelin, and that is the hormone that tells us you are hungry. Eat, you need to eat. And then it decreases leptin, which tells us as we're eating, yes, go ahead, eat. Oh, you know what? You're actually getting full, and you're getting fuller, and stop. And we usually have a balanced amount of those hormones when we get good sleep. But if we don't, then that gets out of balance, those hormones, which affects our hunger, our gut, and then it affects everything else. And then we're wanting to just eat excessively throughout the day. It makes us so hungry that it's like a catch-22 system. And then something can happen to the next system.
So the hormones that do affect this, and then they affect that. It's a kind of a, what do you call it? It's like a ladder.
They're interconnected.
They're interconnected. Yes, yes. We have another question. How does leaky gut affect the large intestine? Pain, is it pain or constipation, etc.?
Oh, I see. So what is the physical?
Yes.
You know, for every person, it is different. For some people down in the large, if it's down there in the large intestine, it could be constipation, or it could be the opposite, diarrhea, maybe. It's just different from person to person.
But if someone is experiencing, you know, ongoing pain and constipation, usually that's not a good sign, right?
Yeah, so what we usually say before I jump into saying, take on more probiotics, take on more prebiotics, we like to say, get checked first for SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, because if there is that bacteria that is growing down there, then actually taking in more prebiotics at that time will just feed the bad bacteria that's down there. So we do want to know first if SIBO, because with SIBO, people will experience a lot of discomfort. So before we say, just jump into this, always have tests done first, because there might be an infection, there could be SIBO, there could be parasites, or there could be other things in there that before we jump into something, let's make sure there's no other root cause down there.
Okay, and the next question is, how do I know if there are issues with my colon? And one, and two, can we consume too much fiber?
Mm. Okay, I'm gonna start off with a, can we consume too much fiber? Oh, yes. You know, it's the standard American diet. The problem with that is that we don't consume enough fiber, and maybe only 12 to 13 grams when we should be consuming 25 to 30, even 35 grams of fiber per day. But there are times, which I was that person too, in which, well, if this is good, then the more is better. So let me just do a lot of fiber every single day. Ugh. The thing with nutrition, it can get so complicated. You can just throw up your hands in the air sometimes, but too much fiber can also affect the absorption of iron. And then if you're not getting enough iron, you will start feeling tired or lethargic, and you're like, but I am eating so well. I am eating really healthy. But yeah, just make sure you're not overdoing the fiber. We really shouldn't be overdoing any one thing, because when we overdo one thing, it affects the absorption of another. I know nutrition is so tricky in that way.
Yeah, truthfully, the thing is that most of us are not overdoing it on the fiber. We're overdoing on the meat proteins, or overdoing on the processed foods. We're overdoing on the sweets and the processed foods, but we're not overdoing on fiber. Most people aren't. Someone asked the question, does drinking liquids right after eating negatively affect your gut? I want to add to that. I heard that when you drink water right after eating or with eating, that it makes it harder for food to digest. So I guess putting it all together, what happens when you eat with food or drink right after you have your meal?
Okay, so I was one of those individuals that was very strict about when I drink my water. Not going to drink it, like my cutoff was half an hour to an hour before eating my meal, and then I wouldn't drink water during my meal, then I wouldn't drink water after. And I was a believer in that. And then I realized, some of this food doesn't feel like it's really going down nicely. So a little bit of water for little sips can just make the dining experience more pleasurable, just as long as I don't overdo it. And I also thought, oh, it dilutes my gastric juices. That's what I really thought a lot. However, up until maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, I saw that really was not the case. So what do I say now? I really say still don't overdo it. If you have to drink some to help make the food feel like it's going down better and it's more comfortable that way, just do amounts that are comfortable and just right. The thing is, if we drink too much with our meals, then we sometimes get full more easily, and then we don't have enough room in our stomachs for those food items that really give us the nutrients that our bodies are really craving for. So that's what I would say is, you know what, let's just do it for that reason and still keep it, the majority of it, after our meals. But I wouldn't be against drinking a little bit.
A sip or so, just a couple sips.
A few sips.
Yeah, not glugging down an entire,
Right.
Okay, next question. I heard you mention beans.
Monica Dean this.
Oh, oops, hold on one second. Someone's here.
No problem.
Let me just make sure everyone's muted.
Monica Dean, Barbados.
Okay, great. All right. So, hi, Monica. We heard your voice. We're taking questions. If you type it in the chat, we can ask your question to the doctor. The next question is, I heard you mention beans as a protein source. Would you recommend eliminating meat from the diet completely? One, and two, would you recommend enemas and colonics to promote good gut health?
Okay, there's a lot in those questions. Would I eliminate meat completely? Okay, so I will be completely honest, and I will bring in Dr. Ernie Medina's name in here. We were joking one time in a meeting, and we believe in being plant-based as much as possible. And there are some times for me personally that I do need fish, I do need chicken, and so I like to say I am a plant-based flexitarian. So I like to flex, but I'm plant-based. And my buddy there, Dr. Ernie Medina, he's like, hey, why don't we say flexitarian? So that's our word. You heard it first right here, flexitarian. You need to write a paper about it. However, it is best to let each of our meals be plant-based. Now, would I recommend it as to everybody that we should be 100%? That's a very interesting question, because now I'm also a believer in looking at the nutrigenetics of an individual. And I know that some individuals do have this gene variation in which they don't absorb vitamin B12 as well. And so they really need to be mindful. And I have seen studies in which even omnivores, even though they are eating meat, some of them still have a vitamin B12 deficiency and vitamin D. So yeah, both. But vitamin B12, even though they are eating a little bit of meat, some of them still have a vitamin B12 deficiency because of their gene variants. So that's why I like to say that with each person, it really has to be individualized. Excessive red meat intake, though, can increase the amounts of what we call trimethylene amino oxidase. So that is a bacteria that people consume, or that is produced in the gut when people eat excessive amounts of red meat. And so that's this bacteria then that gets produced, and then it goes into the system, and then it can cause heart disease. So excessive amounts in that situation is not a good thing. However, we should consume as much plants as much as possible.
And that long word that you just said, it also destroys endothelial cells as well, right?
Yes, excessive amounts.
Yeah, so if we're eating a lot of meat, the endothelial cells, which protects around the heart and protects the organs, it also destroys that as well. And so your answer is plant as much as you can.
As much as possible.
Plant as much
Every
as you
meal.
can. But on the occasion that you have a little fish here or a little chicken here, it's not going to hurt you. But if that's your regular go-to every meal, like some people get up, they have bacon and eggs and ham, and then for lunch they have turkey and a beef sandwich, and then at night they have a roast. So if 95% of your meals are meat, you're going to end up having those problems. So the next question was, should enemas and colonics should you recommend those to promote good health?
Not on a regular basis unless you really have issues. So I really haven't done my research into that as far as should it be done regularly, like do we all need it? To me, it's like our lifestyle, good sleep, stress, and what we eat. If we do that, I really don't think it's necessary, but I really think only if you absolutely need it.
And especially if you're eating a plant-based diet, many people that have a plant-based diet don't usually have problems with constipation because they have that fiber, unless there's some underlying issue. But excuse me, but that's a really good question. The next question is, does eating spicy foods negatively affect the gut?
Oh, okay. I believe that excessive amounts can irritate the lining of the gut. So yeah, if we just pepper everything with all of these hot spices.
Oh no.
It's
I love spicy foods.
I'm not taking anything away. I'm just saying, just don't do things excessively. Now, I'm going to share a personal story right here. Okay, so I have reflux, and what has helped me is going gluten-free. And so I might have had already the beginnings of leaky gut. And I would be careful of when I would eat my orange, when I'm having it at dinner, or when am I going to sing, because then I don't want to have this cough coming up. But I have been supporting my dad and my mom in going on a gluten-free diet, and I didn't think I would benefit from it. But now I don't have issues with my reflux because it, I think really for me personally, it helps me. It might not help everybody, but it helped the lining of my GI tract so that I don't need to take anything. So, but spicy food, excessive amounts, yes, it can irritate the lining of the stomach. But I do like hot things too, Natalie. So
I love it. Doesn't affect me in any way at all. But I love spicy. I love curries. I love things like that. Sorry, I missed the question here. So the person that asked about hormones earlier was asking specifically about female hormones. Let me go back to that question. Let me go back. That question was
just dysbiosis.
How does hormones? Sorry, so I'll read it over. How does female hormones affect our gut health and functionality? So are there specific issues that are specific to women that would affect gut health?
Yes, there actually are. I need a moment or two to think more about that, but yes, there is definitely a connection. I just can't put the connection right now, but I need to think about that more.
Okay, perhaps if I get your email, I can share it here. And if someone has a specific question, then you can send them more information. Would that work?
That would work best,
okay.
Yes.
Okay. The last question I had here, I do most of the non-negotiables during the time. This is the question. But still I have bloating and gas. How can I find a nutritionist to work with to figure this out? Can I go to any registered dietitian, or would you recommend a specific type of dietitian? What is your recommendation?
Okay, very good. So I love all my colleagues, okay? I uphold them, and I am in the business of nurturing the future dietitians of America and the world. However, especially with your particular question and needs, I would really look for an integrative and functional nutrition dietitian, because they will really look for the root cause. They most likely will, and of course there will be other dietitians that will possibly look into that too, but an integrative and functional dietitian, that is going to be at the forefront of their minds for sure, is to dig deeper.
Okay, so let me just ask you to break that down. An integrative functional nutritionist, I didn't know. I know that there are like senior nutritionists or nutrition for children or sports nutrition, but what is for the layman, for people like me,
Yes,
for
yes.
people that are, for people that
So
are now
true.
going, okay, I need to look for an integrated nutritionist. Can you
Yes.
explain what that means?
Okay, so integrative definitely means that we like to integrate still Western medicine philosophies along with alternative methods. And so we like to embrace both methods. And the alternative method is represented by the word functional. Functional means we are looking for the root cause. We're not just saying, okay, here's an issue, here's medication, we're just going to mask the symptoms, or here's a diet to mask the symptoms. No, we want to work with you to dig deep, to look into why are you having this in the first place. So there will be a lot of questions and tests that will be performed to have a good picture of what's going on.
Okay, so let me see. Is there a last question from anyone? I see we have Angie on here, Ken Porter, we have David, Ernesto, Grace, Patricia, Jacinth, Katrina, Kenise, Obed, Chavanice, Shani, and the Stewarts. Is there a last question that you would like us to ask Dr. Noval before we give her final thank you?
While we're waiting for a final question, I do want to say something that I forgot to mention. And that is, with exercise, not only does it decrease stress, but there are numerous studies that say with athletes, because they are moving regularly, they have a different microbiota composition than those who don't move at all, or those who are not athletes. But do we have to be an athlete, an elite athlete like them, to gain the benefits of that? No, just as long as I believe we are working out, exercising on a regular basis, that can also help with the balance, the composition of our microbiota. So another reason to move it.
Okay, so all of us need to be exercising. The last question I have here is, do you work with your clients over the phone or internet? And if so, how can people get a hold of you?
I do have a virtual private practice, and I can be reached at jejenoval.com. JEJENOVAL.com.
Okay, so I put that in the chat if anyone's here. I just want to really thank you so much for being here with us this evening. People have really been engaged. Everyone's on. I want to give you the anyone that's on here, if you have a final question, this is your time to do that.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Like, I really want to know, because I'm hearing so much about tofu now. So I really want to know, is tofu a danger to us, so that I can start eating more?
Okay, I want to appease your fears, if you had a fear about it. In moderate amounts, it is not a danger to us. For some people with thyroid issues, if they are on certain medications like Synthroid, levothyroxine, then definitely consume tofu hours away from taking your medication, because then it can affect the efficacy of the medication. However, for us women, depending on what season of life we're in, it can actually affect it can affect our hormones. But you know what? Having tofu 3 to 4 times a week, not every single meal, not every single day. I used to do that. I used to, because I thought, oh, tofu comes from a plant, so it should be okay. Oh my, little did I know, and I paid for it, and I suffered for a while. So I have it 3 to 4 times a week, and again, in moderation, it's fine. For men, okay, let's see, moderate portions are fine too. It is helpful for prostate cancer. It can help prevent prostate cancer. But you don't want to overdo it either, because the excessive, if you take it in an excess, because it has phytoestrogen, it can suppress excessively too much your testosterone levels, and then that wouldn't be good. So mindful moderation. I know some people like that word and some do, but mindful. Let's be mindful of how much we're eating, and it's still good to consume. There are a lot of studies that are still coming out saying that it is good for cardiovascular health still. So
Was there another question? Access X00PD, do you have a question? Someone from Barbados, did you have a question? Okay, all right. I have a question here.
okay.
Does mixing fruit and vegetable in one meal cause bad gut or cause us to be gassy? And do you recommend it?
I will start off by saying, when I was a student at Loma Linda University, I was following that strictly, like keeping the fruits and vegetables separate for a little bit. And I asked one of my professors, and he sat me down, and this is the answer that I will give too. He said, Gigi, he said, unless you absolutely experience discomfort with consuming them together, then don't do it. Yeah, or if you don't have a problem with it, then consume it together. But if you do have problems, separate it. And so what do I say? Because everybody's individualized, and we cannot cookie cutter give everybody the same nutrition advice and tips. So how does your body react to it? Do you do well with having both fruits and vegetables at the same meal? If you do, then definitely enjoy it in that way. If you think about it that, oh my, this might cause me issues because I read about it somewhere, then the stress of thinking about that will result in maybe some kind of GI discomfort. It's a result that we put on ourselves. But if that discomfort doesn't come naturally from just consuming that, then yeah, let's not worry about that. It's actually fine. But some people have to. Some people do notice that separating it out is better for them.
Okay. Well, I want to say that I think that everyone here has gained a lot from this. If you appreciate what Dr. Gigi has said, can you share some hearts or some thumbs up? And if you are in our Zoom presentation, if you can just go ahead and say thank you, or put in the chat thank you, so she knows, because we're recording. She'll be able to see it, and she'll know that you really appreciated the information that she shared. Dr. Gigi, I hope that you're willing to come back, because one of the things that I would really like you to discuss is food sensitivities. So many people have food sensitivities and they don't realize it. They don't realize what food sensitivity is, and they don't recognize perhaps the symptoms. And so everyone's saying they appreciate it. Thank you for a wonderful session. We will look forward to having you again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
If there's one last thing you wanted to say to the people, what would it be?
It would be, God made us so beautifully, so wonderfully, and we are his temple, and he does live in us. And so we need to keep that in mind, that we are taking care of ourselves for him. It's not a selfish thing to do, but because he lives inside of us and he made us, he created us. So we need to take care of this body, this temple that he made. And I wish everyone well, keep safe. Thank you everyone for your appreciations there. You are so welcome. It's my honor and pleasure. And I wish every one of you well. Please keep safe, and please keep God #1 in your lives. Thank you, Natalie, for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Please look out for our following up series. We're definitely going to have Dr. Gigi back. But we're also going to have Dr. Crystal Thompson coming up in the next couple of weeks. She is a gynecologist, and we're going to be talking about women's health and maternal health in the time of COVID-19. Have a good night, everyone, and have a very good evening. Thanks for being here, and thanks for checking in with us. Bye-bye.